Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Deputy Speaker, almost all the Sri Lankan, not just the Muslims in this country, relating to our stand towards the cause of Palestine. It is a matter of regret that repeatedly we appear to be taking up a position of ambivalence, particularly when resolutions condemning the actions of Israel in the occupied territories, which affect UNESCO preserved heritage sites, are moved in the Executive Council of UNESCO. Now, last year too, it was reported that Sri Lanka has abstained when a motion to condemn the actions of Israel was brought before the UNESCO. Regarding that matter, the Honorable Dinesh Gunawardena raised issue in Parliament, and the Honorable Minister was kind enough to give a detailed reply. And I am pleased to quote from some portions of that reply, which somewhat goes to pacify the strong supporters of the Palestinian cause in this country. But nevertheless, I must add some reservations here, because to us, we are somewhat dismayed and disappointed that we are missing the point here. I am in total agreement with the Honourable Minister when he reiterates throughout in his reply that the friendship between Palestine and Sri Lanka is as strong as ever, and that the cause of the Palestinian people and the commitment of the Palestinian cause has been a consistent and core feature of Sri Lanka's foreign policy, maintained by all governments ever since we recognized the state of Palestine way back in 1988. I am not at cross purposes with the Honourable Minister on that statement. It may be so, but a few days ago, once again in the UNESCO Exco, when this resolution was brought to condemn Israel for certain actions undertaken in the old city of Jerusalem, that motion, once again, we have abstained. And through this abstention, we are sending a very wrong message too. Yes. Yes, please.
No, I just want to say you're right that there was abstained.
Yes.
When this matter came up. But again, that was after much consideration, Honourable Minister.
Yes.
Because Sri Lanka is also the chair of the Israeli Practices Committee.
Yes.
And we felt, and I think even the Palestinians do appreciate the fact, in order to maintain our neutrality and credibility as the chairman in that respect, we felt it is best that we abstain. That was the thinking behind that decision. Whereas we have always stood for Palestinian rights throughout my period as foreign minister.
Am I to take it that this is a sentiment that was shared by the Palestinian delegation to the UNESCO, and then they understood? No.
Because I know that they greatly appreciate the role we are playing as
definitely. I mean, none of us are
Israeli
disputing the
Practices
fact that we have been chairing the Israeli practices in the Occupied Territories Committee for several years now, and we have, when we were present in Geneva, we have seen the praise that countries which are friendly towards Palestine's cause heap on Sri Lanka for the excellent work we are doing as the chair of this particular committee. But nevertheless, the Honourable Minister, let me quote from Mr. Hillel Neuer, the head of the pro-Israeli UN Watch. Now he says, additional countries abstaining in the vote had a positive aspect for Israel. And he says that by these abstentions, Palestinians suffered a significant defeat in the international arena. This is the impact. This is how the Israeli lobby is trying to market this issue of our abstaining in these votes in order to continue with their derogatory practices in the occupied territories. As a matter of fact, I think the Honourable Minister last time in reply to Honourable Dinesh Gunawardena dealt in detail about the wording of the resolution then, and that you felt that the wording should have been much softer and it was too harsh, and therefore it was not promoting a reconciled approach towards the two sides, and that we should stand towards promoting this time-honored policy that we have now continued to allow Israel and Palestine to be recognized and then stay as on the two-state policy. With all that, now let me read portions of this motion, which is very, very explicit in its content. Now it says, the Executive Board, having examined document 201x30, now I'm just quoting portions. 1, regrets the failure of the Israeli occupying authorities to cease the persistent excavations, tunneling, works and projects in East Jerusalem, particularly in and around the old city of Jerusalem, which are illegal under international law, and reiterates its request to Israel, the occupying power, to prohibit all violations which are not in conformity with the provisions of the relevant UNESCO conventions, resolutions and decisions. Then another one, also regrets the Israeli refusal to implement the UNESCO request to the Director General to appoint a permanent representative to be stationed in East Jerusalem, to report on a regular basis about all aspects covering the fields of competence of UNESCO in East Jerusalem. And it continues, reaffirms that the two concerned sites located in Hebron and in Bethlehem are an integral part of the occupied Palestinian territory, and shares the conviction affirmed by the international community that the two sites are of religious significance for Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. As a matter of fact, the Honourable Minister last time adverted to this argument also, that our policy was to promote the coexistence between these three monotheistic faiths in this holy land. And therefore, our policy is not to use derogatory language and to use softer language. I beg Mr. Deputy Speaker to ask the question whether the language that has been used in the resolution is anyway derogatory. I mean, could we call this a derogatory language? Could we call this language being harsh? Certainly not. I mean, you cannot by any other means say that the wording of the resolution was not promoting the objectives of UNESCO's conventions and decisions that have already been adopted by the international community. So continuous violation by the State of Israel in the occupied territories, particularly harming UNESCO conventions, gave rise to a resolution such as this to be brought before UNESCO. And our continuous abstention on this issue is emboldening the Jewish state to continuously violate the international norms and best practices when it comes to UNESCO heritage sites. And that is why I take strong objections and want to record my reservations in this case. Therefore, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would request that the Honourable Minister clarifies this and also look at this issue of continuous abstention in matters such as this, which is allowing the Israeli occupiers to continue their violations, being more emboldened, thinking that some of us who have been taking a very resolute position when it comes to the Palestinian cause are somewhat taking a very obnoxious positions in issues such as this. Therefore, this is hurting the sentiments of all those Sri Lankans who have been supporting across the religious divide the cause of Palestine. Therefore, I would rather have that on record. And I also need to say a few more things about matters here, which also relates to our international commitments, particularly the commitment through the LLRC recommendations to Geneva and in our efforts to continue with our reconciliation program.